Okay?
Laser every fucking one of you! Who's the real hero?
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we have a fascinating mission, and it's one I think you'll really get into. We're analyzing a character's cognitive and emotional turning point. We're not just looking at a plot twist. We are dissecting the exact moment a character, Greg, stops being defined by his past and, well, starts strategically mapping out his future.
It's that shift from being reactive to proactive.
Exactly. From perpetual flight mode to finally active confrontation.
And it's the foundational change we often wait for in a long narrative, isn't it? We're pulling excerpts from Shadow of the Baker, Greg's Strategic Awakening, and we're really going to zero in on Chapter 6.
Okay.
Because up until this point, Greg's life has been, an exercise in damage control. He's either building walls or just running fast enough to escape this huge family scandal.
A scandal that's always tied back to this almost mythical figure, the Baker.
Right, the shadowy figure. And Chapter 6 is where that whole mechanism of running finally completely breaks down. It forces Greg to confront this crushing weight of inherited guilt. He has to decide. Keep fleeing a ghost or become the hunter.
And what makes this deep dive so compelling is the trigger. It wasn't some, grand reveal of the scandal itself.
No.
The real emotional catalyst happens in Stellenbosch, and it's centered on this immediate, visceral feeling of guilt. Greg is desperately trying to build a new life, a clean slate, but the sources make it so clear that his past has finally cornered him. It feels uninvited and unavoidable.
That's a great way to put it. The central conflict in Greg's life is that he feels responsible for, and I'm quoting here, crimes that destroyed his family even though they were his father's crimes.
He's just internalized all of it.
Completely. And what breaks him isn't the enormity of that original sin, but the micro-failure of his present, his attempt at a normal connection.
Okay, let's unpack that specific emotional breaking point, because it's almost counterintuitive, isn't it? We're talking about a man who has lived under this cloud of financial ruin, of moral ruin. Yet what devastates him is the look on Lisa's father's face.
Yes. It's the difference between an abstract shame and concrete immediate damage. The family scandal was huge, but it was also distant. It felt like a fate that was just imposed on him.
But this incident in Stellenbosch is right here, right now.
Exactly. The sources really emphasize the acute pain he feels, his perceived responsibility for ruining something that mattered to Planck. He hasn't just exposed himself. He feels he's damaged his best friend's standing.
I wonder if that's what makes it so much worse, the collateral damage. The past he tried so hard to contain didn't just hurt him. Now it's hitting the people he actually cares about.
I think that's it.
That immediate, tangible failure in a friendship, you combine that with Lisa's father's reaction, and it just shatters his whole carefully built facade. It basically screams at him, you can never be safe, and neither can anyone who gets close to you.
That's the psychological trap right there. He has built his entire identity around being not his father and not the scandal. But when this small incident happens, it feels like proof that all his efforts are useless. The past isn't just following him anymore.
It's manifesting through him.
Precisely. For the first time since arriving in Stellenbosch, the consequences of his history feel personal, direct, and just. Overwhelming. This is the moment the hairline fracture becomes a catastrophic break.
And this spirals him right into his deepest fear.
Yeah?
That he is fundamentally destructive to the people he loves. And it's right at that low point that Planck steps in. This intervention is so critical.
It's the emotional anchor he needs for his strategic mind to even begin to reboot.
Right.
Planck's intervention defines unconditional loyalty in a way Greg has probably never experienced since the whole scandal blew up. He's been operating under the assumption that the second his history is revealed, everyone will react with, disgust or just betrayal.
That's the trauma talking.
It is, and Planck immediately dismantles that expectation. He doesn't offer pity, he offers clarity. The sources say Planck makes it abundantly clear he knows exactly who Greg is. The person, not the family name.
He says one incident, or even this enormous shadow from his father, doesn't define him.
And that's such a profound contrast to what Greg has lived through. Imagine carrying that weight for years. Planck explicitly says, you are not your father. You are not responsible for those crimes. By providing that bedrock of loyalty, he grounds Greg. He gives him permission to stop spiraling emotionally and start thinking logically.
It's an external validation he desperately needed. that his own worth is separate from his family's history. It's almost like a therapeutic intervention from a friend, validating the pain but rejecting the guilt. Without Planck doing that, Greg would he would run again, convince himself he had to leave Stellenbosch to protect everyone.
Absolutely. Planck provides a safe space for this strategic awakening to even happen. But, and this is crucial, even with that tremendous support, Greg immediately shifts to the next realization, the trap of inherited identity.
So Planck might have given him permission to be free, but he realizes the rest of the world hasn't.
Exactly.
He still can't shake that feeling of being trapped in his father's shadow.
Yeah.
It's the moment he gets that even with one loyal anchor, the external world is still hostile. Every new person, every interaction, every suspicious look he gets in Stellenbosch is colored by that scandal.
And this raises a huge question, right? How do you achieve personal autonomy when society just refuses to see you as separate from your parents? Greg realizes that running, moving, new names, starting over, it's all just reactive. And ultimately, it's futile.
And this is the real aha moment for him and for you listening. Greg finally understands that the crimes linked to his family aren't just a secret he's carrying. They act like a permanent global filter through which everyone sees him.
He can't outrun a perception.
No. No matter how many cities he hides in, the filter is still there. Running just postpones the inevitable collision.
And running keeps you on the defensive. You're always spending energy on escape, not on building something new. The realization that the world defines him by his father's scandal forces a methodological shift. If he can't change the location,
He has to change the source of the definition.
yes, he has to move from running away from the past to actively re-engineering the present by resolving it.
So this is where the emotional breakdown really becomes the catalyst for the strategic awakening. That intense futility, that realization his life will be permanently limited unless he acts, it pushes him. He stops asking, where can I run next? And starts asking, what is the root cause of this pressure and how do I neutralize it?
This is the pivot of Chapter 6. The shift is not just an attitude, it is a complete overhaul of his operating system.
Yeah.
He stops reacting emotionally driven by shame and panic and starts thinking strategically.
And the source material is really explicit about this. It says he analyzes the situation logically, carefully, and with purpose.
What's so crucial here is that he starts applying intellectual methods he was taught a long time ago. Methods for complex problem solving in high-stakes environments, which he'd basically sidelined while his life was just about emotional survival.
So he's treating his own life like a strategic problem now.
He is. It's a kind of systems analysis. He's identifying the components, the inherited identity, the scandal filter, the pressure point, which is the truth of the original crime. He's separating the objective data, the facts, from the emotional noise, which is his personal guilt.
And he realizes that until the objective truth is revealed, until the real perpetrator is exposed, he will always be trapped.
It's a moment of profound cognitive recalibration. He's taking the cold, hard tools of logic and risk assessment and applying them to this intensely personal crisis. He concludes that confrontation is the only path to reclaiming control. He has to impose his own will on the narrative that's been written for him.
Which is why the chapter is called Strategic Awakening. He's no longer a passive victim of events.
No, he's planning to make events happen. He understands the solution isn't in a new city, it's in a complete intellectual mastery of the historical wreckage.
So this awakening immediately leads to a plan. And it's a huge undertaking. He decides the only way to free himself from this inherited prison is to uncover the absolute truth of the original corruption. But then there's this fascinating caveat. He wants to free himself, and he thinks, possibly free his father.
And this directs all of his focus back to the primary antagonist, the name that's been hovering in the background for years, the Baker.
The Baker. He's not just a character. He's the center of the whole web of corruption that destroyed Greg's family, and by extension, Greg's life.
That shift in focus from my shame to the Baker's actions is everything. It redefines his entire mission. It's not just about survival anymore.
It's about justice, or maybe more like self-liberation through finding the truth.
And the sources are really clear that his motivation is now intensely personal, and it's broken down into 3 concrete goals, which gives his strategy real depth.
Okay, so the first goal is fundamentally about autonomy, reclaiming control over his own life. After years of feeling like a puppet, he needs to seize the reins of his own identity. That's number 1.
Second, and this ties directly back to that emotional collapse in Stellenbosch, is breaking free from inherited guilt. The Baker symbolizes the truth, and confronting the Baker is the process he needs to finally sever that toxic link.
to stop internalizing his father's actions.
Exactly. And the third goal speaks directly to the strategic method he's just adopted: illumination. He needs to finally understand the full scope of the corruption. He can't move forward with incomplete or emotionally filtered information. He needs the whole truth to logically dismantle the shadow.
So if we look at Chapter 6 as a whole, it really is that undeniable pivot point.
It is. Greg is treating emotional reaction for calculated action. He's no longer defined by avoidance, he's defined by intent. He is taking this massive, overwhelming existential crisis and turning it into a solvable, strategic puzzle. That's the awakening.
It's a really compelling shift, and it leaves us with a serious question for you to consider. Greg's plan is tied to freeing himself, but it includes that little caveat, and possibly his father. This suggests two things, right? Either his father was just a pawn, or the crime is so complex that the baker holds way more power than we or Greg ever understood. What does this strategic decision to seek knowledge as a path to reclaiming your identity, what does that imply about the huge, unseen power structure Greg is now aiming his focus at? And how hard will it be to stay objective when the stakes are this personal?
That's something to mull over. A fascinating setup for what comes next.
That was the deep dive. We'll catch you next time.